Hello, everybody, and welcome to Everything But the Cats, the podcast and video show where we are legally, morally, ethically, and bibliographically obligated not to talk about the cats. My name's Gage,
I'm DJ.
and today we are joined by one of our friends. We've been able to have a blast being featured on his podcast before, the Joy Schtick Show, and this is Thomas. Go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Aloha, everybody, and thank you guys. I appreciate you having me on. It's nice to be on the other side, because we had a blast. I think we had a blast. Hopefully, you did too.
Mhm.
But yeah, on the Joystick Show, it was a podcast I started with my friends, like everybody else. Started a podcast during the pandemic, and for some reason, we just didn't stop. So we're here some 3.5 years later, and that podcast is all about pop culture, and it is what brings us joy from the pop culture we're watching weekly. So it's the newest reviews of movies, shows, video games, and comics. We need to add more comics in there. We don't talk a lot about that, but yeah. And then we all bring something to the table. We hit the big shows. There was Agatha, there was House of the Dragon, there was the Rings of Power. We fell off of that. Sorry for fans who listen to that. But yeah, and it's just a lot of joking around pop culture.
I
Yep.
saw a lot of your stuff back when Shogun was airing, where you guys were talking about
Oh.
that, and it made me want to watch it. So I'd say thanks. You've introduced me to so many things I never would have heard of just with the little clips that you guys post.
Right on.
Um,
Oh
so
man, that's awesome. I love to hear that because Shogun was so wonderful and it was so detailed and like it was like for me, Game of Thrones meets feudal Japan.
mhm.
Where it's like the characters are interesting, it's like deep storytelling, but it's like when it's violent, it's like, ooh, that's brutal. Like I have a hard time watching that. So I appreciate that you tuned in for that one. And also like we have Drake on the show who's kind of like a Japanese historian.
Hmm.
So we got his kind of like historical take from what he knew about it too. So it really worked out, I think, pretty well for that show. So
Yeah,
happy you got to tune in for that one.
yeah, that's super cool. Um, but yeah, so what we're going to be doing today, first, we're just going to give you a little bit of an opportunity, and you, as in the way that it's used in the like in ancient literature, like our audience, you all,
Yeah.
just have just a little bit of an opportunity to get to know Thomas, and then we're gonna get into this, talking about some pop culture of our own, which is something DJ and I really don't do a lot. Most of our episodes, if you've listened to them, are things that happened 50 years ago or further. Uh,
I Angela and I watched Lord of the Rings a couple months ago for the first time ever for both of us. So we're like, give it 20 years and we'll be caught up to today.
That's hey, you're making progress. That's great.
Yes.
Uh,
those are good ones to like. It doesn't matter how long it's been; those aged so well.
right. It
But
really did.
they they're just and they just make you feel like it's epic. It's an epic, and like I don't know. I feel like there's so much media now that it isn't epic in proportion,
Yeah,
and I
I
really
would
like
agree
it.
with you on that. So there's another show that I do. It's on the Geek Freaks podcast that we're called Challenge Accepted. And I was telling you about this a little bit offline,
Mhm.
but it's weekly challenges back and forth to a new movie and show. I pick one. It could be we did Nolan month, for example. So I pick Inception and he picks Dark Knight Rises or whatever, it's kind of back and forth. And we
Mhm.
have to accept the challenge. And we watched one of the Lord of the Rings, and you're right. It's so epic. It's so much art.
Mhm.
There's just like a
Mm.
feeling there, and I don't know where everybody stands on like the new Lord of the Rings show, that Rings of Power, but like for me, as good as it looked and as how much money was pumped into it, it didn't never captured what was in the Peter Jackson movies.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you could really, I don't know. For me, I just really could feel the difference.
Mhm.
And yeah, to your point, Gage, like those movies still hold up tremendously well.
And for the most part, even some of the CG still looks good. Some of it definitely looks like Xbox era video games, but some of it did age pretty well, especially like Smeagol. I might be putting you on the spot with this one real quick, actually. But you said you did Nolan month. Do you have like if I had to ask you, what's your favorite Christopher Nolan film?
Oh man. I think my top, yeah, it probably has to go to Inception.
Okay.
Funny enough, I love the Batman series, but I think his
Mhm.
first one, The Dark Knight, is probably the best. No, no, what was the second one? Um,
Second was Dark Knight.
yeah,
First was
the second
Begins.
one was Dark.
Yeah.
Right, right, right. Exactly. So I think that was probably up there for the Batman trilogy, but then
Mm-hmm.
I'm such a fan of Interstellar. I really liked, although it was really hard for me to watch again, um, Oppenheimer. I
Okay.
thought that was like so good. I loved Killian Murphy. So I was so happy that he got to be the main character in those movies. But
Mm-hmm.
also I think no, you know what? I'm wrong. One that I got challenged to that I had not watched before we started the
Mm-hmm.
show was The Prestige.
Mm.
Have you guys watched that?
Yes, that's my
Yeah.
favorite Nolan film. That's
Oh my God, man. That blew me away. I love that movie so much. I thought
mm-hmm.
Hugh Jackman was at his finest. I thought Christian Bale at his top tier. And
Mm-hmm.
just the storytelling, the way they kind of wove in this whole thing where when you do go back and watch it, it changes like the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
God, I just love that movie so much. I think that might be a random one, but I think that actually is the new top tier for me for Nolan. And
Mm-hmm.
then you got your Inceptions and all that stuff below it. But man, that blew me away. I love that movie.
DJ, do you have a favorite Nolan film?
I am not well versed enough to have a favorite Nolan film.
What have you seen?
So a lot of them, but forever ago.
Mm.
So I'd say the most recent one I've seen is Inception, and so I'll set that as my favorite.
That
It's a
that's a
good
good
I'm a
choice.
pick
simple
though.
man.
It's a good
Yeah.
choice. I remember in college, freshman year, we had in psychology, we had to watch two movies and do like a psychological analysis of the main character or of a character in the movie. And DJ, I think you were in this class. It might have been me,
Yeah.
Caleb, and Garrett. You were in, okay. And we all did the same two movies, right?
Inception and Shutter Island?
Yeah.
Apparently, yeah.
Ooh,
Because I
nice.
remember, at least, I remember trying to watch both of them in one sitting. Um,
That's funny.
not a good
Oh my
decision.
gosh, that's a marathon right there. That's like
Yeah.
watching two Lord of the Rings movies or one.
That's funny.
Yeah. um, but yeah, so love Christopher Nolan. I haven't seen Memento. I have not seen Memento, but that and I think Oppenheimer, the two I haven't seen, but I've seen all the others, and I
Nice.
really like his work. So
Yeah, I was voting. So the last movie of the month, we actually put up for a fan vote, and people
mm-hmm,
picked Inception, but I was really rooting for Memento, and I still
mm-hmm,
haven't watched it to this day. It's obviously the movie that broke Christopher Nolan, that like put him on the scene,
mm-hmm,
that everybody was like, "Oh wow, you should give this guy a bigger franchise because he can handle these like complex stories." And again, I haven't seen it, but it's like one day when I have like a completely free weekend, I got to
mm-hmm,
put that on and just sit down for it because I know it's one of those. He does these really cool things with like the way his storytelling changes time and the way
mm-hmm,
we look at time. I feel like, and I know Memento is very much that way, right? It's like the tattoos that are on him or the pictures that he finds kind
mm-hmm.
of brings his memory back to what happened. If I'm not
It's
mistaken. I don't know.
I think it's like a backwards story, essentially. Like it's working his way back. Yeah, working his way backwards through the pictures and tattoos and stuff. But I haven't seen it either. That's like so. I am not the best person to ask.
Yeah, let's keep talking about it like we're experts, like we have seen
Yeah,
it though.
I've actually. So my cousin and I joked about starting a podcast called the BSPS podcast, the BS plot synopsis, which is where we watch one episode of a series and then just act like we know how it ends and describe it in
Yeah,
vivid
that's
detail. Um,
that's fun.
even though we've only seen the pilot, and it never really took off. We started with an anime. No, no, no. We started with Wheel of Time. Actually, did you ever watch any of that?
Watched first couple episodes, didn't hook me. So yeah, my thing is like I know not everybody can commit this much time, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
very much if I'm gonna start a new series, I try to give it at least two episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's a show, and I think we're gonna get into it in the probably later on in the
Mm-hmm.
episode, but there's a show where it didn't make sense at all to the fourth episode. I was like, what is going on? I was probably actually mad that I didn't know what was going on because I was committing so much time in it, and I
Mm-hmm.
was watching it in in German with English subtitles. My sister was like, "You got to watch the show. It's fantastic. It's gonna blow your mind." And I was like, I don't, like, okay, we'll see. And I like heavy sci-fi and like
Mm-hmm.
complex, like things that make you go, obviously with Christopher Nolan. But literally after that fourth episode, towards the end of it, it blew me away. I was like, holy crap. I'm sorry, can we swear here?
Yeah, I mean,
I
yeah.
should have asked this before we started going. But I was like, holy shit, what this show is amazing. And so I want to stick it out for a few episodes to really
Mm-hmm.
catch the vibe, and we get recommendations all the time for people. It's like, oh, you should stick it out. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but yeah, Wheel of Time was one of those shows that just never like brought me in right away, or like even after a couple episodes, I fell off. Long story short.
Yeah, we watched one, and I was like, I don't remember any character's name, and most of this made very little sense to me. But I understand why people would probably enjoy it if they want to enjoy it. And then we just kind of came up with our own plot and never recorded.
Yeah,
But
there is some gold out there in the ether. Then out in the universe, there's some gold of a podcast episode that could have been, but never will
Hmm.
be.
oh yeah, we have one of those too.
It's true.
Nice.
uh, call it our episode 0.
Patreon
Nice.
exclusive.
There
um,
you go.
but yeah, so you've got the Joy Schtick Show, and you've got Challenge Accepted. What are the other anything else you're involved in? Sorry, I really struggled getting that out.
Oh no, yeah, perfect segue. Thanks so much. Yeah, there's a third podcast that I'm starting. That's I kind of, I obviously massive fan of pop culture and comic books and video games, giant nerd at my core. But there's another side to me where we used to be a professional pilot or a commercial pilot, I should say, was a flight instructor and then was involved in a plane crash. And it really just kind of shook me and changed my whole life. It brought me into a whole different description, if you will, like as a burn survivor, as somebody who kind of just lost um, their career in a sense. And so it really changed some things around. And then, I was in the hospital for a long time. I get out, it's like, boom, COVID. And of course, Joy Schtick Show helped me really trying to find my footing and not be so stuck in my sadness and depression and mental health struggles and all those things. So this idea kind of popped up that was like, what if I talk about my experience, but also talk about other people who've been through some crazy shit and how you get out of it? And so not just focusing on like this terrible thing happened to me, but how do we move on? How do we grow? How do we use this terrible thing to find success and happiness? And so thus, also because I'm kind of a jokester, we're calling it the Sick Burn Podcast. So right now, the podcast isn't launching. It'll be probably out in 2025. But yeah, it's on Instagram right now. I'm putting out little videos here and there, but it's just Sick Burn Pod. And yeah, you can follow it over there. But yeah, hopefully I'll get some episodes out next year.
Very excited for that, and now I need to check out Challenge Accepted too. But yeah,
No, I've given everybody too much homework now, so it's like, just if any of these interest you, sure, jump on.
the production quality, I will say, of the things that I've seen for Sick Burn so far, I'm just really cool from the side of editing and stuff. So that's really cool to see. But also just
Thank you.
excited for that because I think the message like positivity and coming out of things that are traumatic, that are life changing for the better, and adding humor to it, I think is going to be. I don't know. I just think we need a lot of that in the world.
Thanks, man. Yeah, definitely. And I don't want to come across as like I'm an expert at this. I've got it all figured out. Like I still struggle with so many things, but I also am using this as my own way to kind of figure out how do I stay in a good place and how do you recover? How do you help people who have their own little struggles going on? Again, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not a professional. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but I've learned a few things, and so I'm hoping that I can just give people, some tools maybe or a different perspective to help them get through their life and all that. And yeah, if you laugh along the way, that'd be awesome. But
Mhm.
selfishly, it's a way for me to talk to people that I admire,
Mhm.
who also have dealt with some crazy things and used it to, reach new heights that they never thought were possible. It's just, it's there's a lot of selfish reasons in there as well, along with hoping that people will get something out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. But yeah, no, really exciting. We'll share links and stuff below in the show notes. So please go ahead and check all those out, or any of them out if they sound interesting to you, because it's just a good time. But DJ, I'm sorry, I've talked way more than you have so far. Do you have any questions or anything you want to talk about before we dive into the first topic?
So what I don't have a ton of questions. I think that your shows all sound really cool, and I'm excited for all that. I do want you guys to know that as we were talking before the episode about what we were going to be covering during the episode, for about 3 minutes, I could not hear you guys at all. So I'm really going in blind.
Right on.
So Thomas talked about the importance of like when you do an intro to your show, when you're introducing your show, like make sure that people know like here's what you're gonna get. Here's like a quick like here's what you can look forward to. And I'm on this episode, and I do not know like what lies ahead. So
you're you're like an audience member who just like skipped, hit the 30-second forward button like a bunch of times, and then was
yeah,
just like, all right, here we are.
yeah, and
This is
then
where we're
ended
at
up
now.
on the show.
to to be
Yeah,
fair, like I'd say we got about 4 or 5 minutes into the last episode before it was clear we weren't actually talking about the sexual revolution. So
that's fair. That's fair. But we cut all that.
like 10
That's the
minutes of
magic
it.
of editing.
But yeah, so we're going to take a bit of a step into your world and talk about pop culture today. And maybe not things that are as recent necessarily with some of the topics that we discussed beforehand. But the first thing is I think it would be kind of cool to just talk about some movies and TV shows that we think are underrated or that we don't think got maybe didn't get enough love, didn't give it a lot of publicity, but we just think are really cool and deserve that chance. Or at least that's kind of the way I was looking at that one. So yeah,
Dig it.
do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, so lucky enough, I shout out to my friend Derek for even making me prepared here. But he does a show called Underrated, and it
Hmm.
is just about this. It's underrated movies and podcasts, and he's fantastic. He's been a writer at Watch Mojo and Film Threat and all kinds of stuff. So he's got credentials. And I'm a lonely dude who watched a lot of movies growing up, and because my mom was like, "You should watch this," or "This is great."
Hmm.
So that's the perspective, and that's where I come from. But he was like, "Hey man, do you want to come on and do a couple episodes?" So it's like, yeah. One movie that I didn't get a chance to do because someone else already took it
Hmm.
was a movie called Big Fish. Have you guys heard of it?
It's so good.
Yes, I haven't seen it
Right?
though. Uh,
Okay, thank you, DJ. Yeah, I love it. It's a Ewan McGregor movie. He's the main character, and it's Tim Burton. And it is very Tim Burton in a lot of ways, but it's not as like dark as some of the other ones, maybe, if you can
hmm.
call it that. Like it's not Beetlejuice, it's not Edward Scissorhands. It's kind of a little bit more upbeat and light and bright,
Hmm.
but it's about this guy who everything he had just like the weirdest life in a sense. He was bedridden for all these years because he wasn't growing. Then he grew like I don't know, 3 feet in a year, became like the hometown hero, and realized he was a big fish in a small pond and had to go out in the world. And his whole life, he's been telling his son these stories, but the son hates him because he thinks his dad has been lying or embellishing or has been just telling these stories over and over again that they mean nothing. And so it's this coming to grips with the son, with his dad. Is his
Hmm.
dad actually telling him the truth? And then also, yeah, what did his life mean? I don't know. Am I missing something, DJ? I feel like there's other parts of this story that's like very important.
Uh, No, I mean I think that covers it pretty well. Really, really a great movie. Danny DeVito's in it. That's how you know it's going to be a good one.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, no, it's a good one. I watched it recently, like a few years ago. We were at some friend's house. My wife was playing board games with them, and I'm watching it just in their living room. I don't know why I wasn't like hanging out with them, but I decided to watch Big Fish on their living room TV while they were playing board games with my wife. It's a good movie.
I mean, I specifically remember the first time I watched it too. I was like one of my first real girlfriends. And it was like, oh, are we gonna kiss? Are we not? Like I don't know. We had the living room to ourselves. I don't know where her parents were. And it's like those times where like you could make a move. And I started watching this movie and I'm like, shh, quiet, quiet. Just wait. I now care more about the movie than making a move,
Hmm.
because it's like, and that it has been since I was, 16 years old, 15 years old. It's been one of my favorite movies ever, and it still continuously is. And it's one of those movies that doesn't get a lot of attention, but man, if I have a chance to talk about it, I always love bringing it up. It's just a wonderful movie. Always puts me in a good mood.
I'll have to watch it. I tend to, when it comes to like media stuff, especially, I don't know. It's not conscious, but I notice it in myself. I kind of like to enjoy things that not a lot of people like, and if everybody likes it, I'm kind of like, it wasn't that good. And so like I'll have to check that out though, because it does sound good. It sounds heartwarming, and I love a heartwarming movie. DJ, do you have any yet, or do you want another minute or two to think while I say one?
So I've got both a show and a movie.
Awesome.
Oh,
I don't
extra
know if you
credit.
want both or
I figured we could each do like a couple, just go around, like each
love it.
do
Mhm.
each do two or three or something like that.
Love it. Then I will give
Perfect.
you only one. So I don't know. It's tricky because this is like an early '90s movie, so maybe it wasn't underrated because it like came out before I was born, so maybe it was massive at the time. But there's this old movie called Life is Beautiful. Do you know this one?
No, no, I just think it's funny because it has everybody knows the Christmas life is beautiful, right?
It's a Wonderful Life.
Is it Life
Is
of
our
Life?
is our life is beautiful?
Am I mixing that up? I might
I
completely
don't
just
know.
mix that up.
No, there's a chance. No, I don't know. But it's an Italian movie called Life is Beautiful, and essentially it's kind of split. It's not super long, but it's almost pretty evenly split into two halves. And the first time I watched it was in drama class, like my junior year of high school, and we watched the first half of the movie one day. And the first half of the movie is this very happy-go-lucky man who's just going about his life, and he is like both like really lucky and just super friendly, and it's him convincing this woman to fall in love with him. She's like got a fiance or whatever, but he's just head over heels for her, and like convincing her that he's just really happy, really great guy, she should love him. What I missed the first time I watched it, and I've told you about this movie before, Gage,
Mm.
but I missed the first time I watched it are the subtle hints that this whole thing is happening in like 19 like late 1920s early 1930s Germany, and the main character is a Jewish man, or not Germany, Italy, but like that area, like
Right.
Europe, and the main character is a Jewish man. And so then the second half of the movie is this main character who's still this very happy-go-lucky, gregarious is probably a good word, guy, uh, who's like he and his son are taken to a camp, and his wife. They're taken to a camp, and it's essentially the dad like trying to convince the son that like this is all a big game that they're all playing together, like to help lighten the terrible thing that's happening. And it's a beautiful movie. And maybe it was big back then. I know it won awards. I don't know what awards it won, but definitely nowadays certainly underrated. It's one of two movies that I own on YouTube. Three movies that I own on YouTube. The other two are Get Out, which I wouldn't say is underrated. Good movie, not underrated. And Marcel the Shell with Shoes on, the movie, maybe underrated.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to you on that movie. You sold me on it. I was Googling while you're looking at it. And so what I was thinking about was A Wonderful Life, and I was also thinking about a music festival called Life is Beautiful
Oh,
simultaneously. So that's why I was
gotcha.
so lost. But man, the way you described it, oh my gosh, I'm so in on this movie. That sounds amazing.
Thank you. It's worth it.
And I still need to watch it. This is like the third time DJ's told me about it, and I have yet to watch it. I'll find it later. I will find it and watch it.
Just
Maybe
move to Joplin.
that's
I
becoming
own it on
closer and
YouTube.
closer
Yeah,
to real.
borrow his YouTube login or something.
um, so I have 3 movies and 1 TV show, and you guys both did movies, so I'm going to start with a movie. I guess I'll give you. I want you to tell me which genre to go with. You both did kind of like movies that tug at the heartstrings in their own way. So I've got one of those. It's like a. I don't even know if underrated's the right thing, but I love it. One that's a horror, and one that is a dystopian movie.
I love a good dystopian movie.
Okay, so again, I don't know if it's underrated, but most of my friends that I talk to about movies haven't seen it, and so as far as public square goes, I don't know. Have either of you seen the movie Equilibrium?
Yeah, Christian Bale.
Oh yeah. So this is. Would you say it's underrated? Being someone who's
Equilibrium?
seen it, yeah.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I mean, because if I'm not mistaken, came out a little bit before The Matrix, and
Hmm.
obviously it's not one for one with The Matrix, but there's a lot of similarities in there,
Hmm.
and somehow it missed everybody. But then The Matrix comes out and it blows people away. So in my head, Equilibrium is underrated.
Yeah. It's just I thought it was so good. So Equilibrium, it's a dystopian movie. It's they what they've done is they've created this drug that takes away feelings, takes away emotions, because that is the way to keep war from happening. But in accordance with having people take the drug, they also have to get rid of things that spark emotion. So the houses are all just these concrete blocks essentially, and there's no art, there's no books, there's no music, and if they find out that you have it, they seize and arrest you and then they burn it essentially. And there's this really high ranking official, I think he's called Cleric, and it's Christian Bale. And he finds out the first time I watched this movie, I was in like late middle school, early high school, and I was barely listening to the first part. And they were calling the people who had feelings sense offenders. And I thought they were
Yeah.
saying something else. And I was like, wait, what's this about? But yeah, so Christian Bale, his character comes in, and Sean Bean is his partner, right? Sean Bean,
Shoot, I
and
don't
Sean Bond.
remember.
it's the guy who dies in
I don't
everything.
remember.
uh, he was in Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and he dies in both of them. I think it's Sean Bean.
Oh,
Sure.
So he's
sounds right.
it's Christian Bale's partner, and they go to clear out one of these rebel factions, and he finds out that his partner is a sense offender and that he hasn't been taking his medicine. He's been like smuggling books or whatever, and has to kill him. And then it's a journey of Christian Bale's character like experimenting with feelings essentially, and becoming part of the uprising, or the part of the rebellion, and just all of the stuff that goes on there. There's a lot of action in it, very much in line, similar to like the Matrix. Not as much slow motion, but still just a lot of. They use guns, but it's like hand to hand combat with guns, and it's
Yeah.
so cool. There's sword fights. It's just a lot of fun. Really recommend that movie. Really recommend that one. And Christian Bale, fantastic in the movie. I think.
Yeah.
I would maybe even argue if it weren't for his performance in Equilibrium, I don't know that he would have been as obvious a choice to play Batman as he was.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would agree. I think that for me was like the foyer into like, oh, he could do this. Like I think yeah, a lot of people who were not familiar with Equilibrium wouldn't have thought of him. But to your point, one, it was Sean Bean, so you were
Okay.
correct. And two, the martial arts was called gun kata,
Okay.
where it's like a martial arts, and then they're like shooting, but also dodging and like blocking and stuff. Oh man, that was so cool.
Hmm.
I wish this was a bigger hit because like a new Equilibrium would be awesome right now.
Oh yeah. Well, the choreography was just like the passion that went into it. I think it's obvious. That was a
Yeah, there's
fun.
that one. He goes into like the room and it's completely black, or he turns off the lights. I can't remember. It's been so long since I watched it. But all those soldiers come in,
Mm,
and he's just like shooting and dodging because he understands like where they would be shooting from, and he's just murdering people while also like flipping them around, and like it was so cool. I mean, that scene alone, I think is worth the price of admission to go watch it.
oh
But
yeah.
yeah, it was really cool. I think it was ahead of its time. I'm looking at it
Hmm.
right now. Like the IMDb is rated pretty good, but it didn't like spark people's imagination or like minds like The Matrix did.
Hmm.
You know, like I don't know if yeah, I think because of how stoic he is, kind of in the beginning part, people
Hmm.
kind of had a hard time grasping onto it. I don't know. I'd have to revisit that movie though, but I love that call.
I think Christian Bale is the perfect person to have trying to be an adult experiencing emotion for the first time, and the way that it happens in the scene that it specifically happens is just played very well. Very well. I don't want to give a spoiler to a lot of it, but it's really good movie. It's 20 years old, I guess, but really good movie.
That's
Highly
yeah,
recommend it.
that's crazy to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about that 20 years old. Yeah, I love that. A good one. I thought, I wasn't sure if we were going to go around and each say one, but there's one other movie that I got to speak about on Underrated on that podcast, and I love it. It's one of, out of all the episodes I've done now, hundreds of episodes
Mhm.
podcasting, this episode in particular on someone else's show was one of my favorite ones I've ever done, and it was a movie called The Sound of Metal. Have you guys heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh. It's incredible. So it is a couple. I got to think about who the main actor is. I'll look it up. But his girlfriend is Olivia Cook, who plays the Green Queen in House of the Dragon. She plays like Rhaenyra's friend, who's like on the opposite side. She's something Hightower.
Mhm. Mm.
Anyway, she's like the bad.
I was just gonna say I
Yeah.
have not watched any Game of Thrones related stuff yet.
Okay, so none of this information means anything to you. That like, but Um, but anyway, so she's the girlfriend, and it's kind of a movie around the main guy who's her boyfriend, and they
Hmm.
are in a traveling band together, and he's a drummer. But you start seeing like even in the beginning of the movie, like sound is kind of coming in and out. And they do this really cool thing with like the sound effects in the movie, showing he's like losing his hearing. And so as the movie goes on, it's like him coming to grip with like he's a drummer. His life passion is to drum and make music, and now he's losing his hearing. And it's just like a really powerful movie, but it's kind of like hopeful in some parts, and it's like tragic. And yeah, I kind of caught it in the pandemic, and like I don't want to act like I'm some macho man or something like that, but this movie had me like kind of tearing up and everything, and it is just incredible. And the whole time he's trying to find a way back to her, and she leaves because he has to go to this facility where other deaf people are there and they're learning to adapt with their life, and he's trying to reject it at every point. He's like, he's like, no, I can still do this. No, and he's
Hmm.
just coming to grips with what he's lost, and he's trying to get back to her, and he sells everything to try to get these cochlear implants. And I'll let you guys watch it, but he may or may not have gotten what he was looking for, and he may have discovered something that he couldn't even imagine because he had lost his hearing. So, man, I
Hmm.
love that movie so much. I can't reach that one enough. Big Fish and Sound of Metal, I will always like ride hard for those movies.
I'm adding both of them to my watch list.
Okay, that's good.
Sound of
I'm gonna look it
Metal.
up right now. I'm gonna see who the main actor is. Oh, it popped up right away. You Google, you know me too well. It is Riz Ahmed. Of
Okay.
course, I say it all the time, and the one time it matters, I can't think of it. But yeah, Riz Ahmed is in there, and he's the main guy. So good.
I've seen like Big Fish the cover before so many times, but I've just never actually watched it. Um, but yeah. Okay. Good shout. I'll have to check out Sound of Metal. and well, all of them, but definitely I saw it looks like he's playing drums on the cover, and I love metal music, so I feel like that one just speaks to me.
Yeah, yeah. It'll definitely, yeah, tug on the heartstrings a little bit too, I think. And I like movies that put you in a different perspective, right? I
Mm,
mean, we live our lives. We know what we're thinking. We know how we look at situations in life and stuff like that.
mm-hmm,
And when it comes to I think movies have gotten to this place for so long. Having a disability and stuff was like a kind of looked down upon. It was like, oh, poor this guy, poor little Timmy. In the
mm-hmm,
Christmas Carol, and it was like, oh, this sucks. But and it can be, but it also can show people thriving in situations where you might not be able to. O- Yeah,
mm-hmm,
I don't know if that's said well enough. I mean, there's another movie that came out that if A Sound of Metal was maybe the same year as it, might have won the Oscar, but this movie a year later did, which was called Coda, and it's about this girl who is a tremendous singer. Like she's such a fantastic singer, but she lives in a family and they're all deaf.
mm,
So none of them can comprehend her skill and her passion for singing. And like she gets into like the school choir or something like that.
mm-hmm,
And they're like, "You're incredible. You need to go to Juilliard. You need to go to this school that can like teach you how to do this at a higher level."
mm,
And she's trying to explain to her family, and they just don't get it because they also need her because her family are fishermen in the Boston area, and they use her to communicate with other people, whether it's like the Coast Guard or other fishermen or like the sellers of the fish. So like her family needs her,
mm-hmm.
but also like should she go chase her dream? It's also a fantastic movie, and I like that movie a lot too. But it's like, I go neck and neck. I like Sound of Metal better for different reasons, but like it brings you to this thing. I'm not deaf. I can't imagine what it's like being deaf, but it
Mm-hmm.
gives me a little bit of a taste in that life. And like, I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, the question was always like, would you rather be blind or would you rather be deaf? And
Mm,
I don't know. I never knew what the answer. It was always I don't want to be blind, but it shows how hard it would be, but also how life could still be great even if you didn't have that. I don't
mm-hmm.
know if I'm getting too serious now, but like that's where my mind goes with these movies that I appreciate a lot more now.
Yeah, no, like you're good. We like getting deep. DJ, you got a second?
Yeah, I've got a couple. One, like it's tricky. So I've got a couple shows left.
Mm-hmm.
One is tricky because I don't know that it's underrated necessarily so much as like my opinion that it's good is controversial. So I don't, maybe I'll just say them both real quick because I don't have much to say. I think She-Hulk was really good. I was uh I was a fan of She-Hulk. So
Wow.
yeah. Uh
That
and
that is an internet hot take.
I know I really enjoyed it, and yeah, so there goes our listenership for sure. But it's a hill I'm willing to die on. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. Anyways, more
Wait, question.
underrated. Yeah,
Before that, what's your take on the ending? Because they did something I think
yeah.
a lot of people might have enjoyed the show and then they didn't like the ending, or I was the opposite. I didn't really like the show, but I really liked the ending. What was your take on it?
So not as someone who's not really a big like Marvel fan outside of the cinematic universe, I I wasn't the hugest fan of the ending. Because I like can't really appreciate the callback or whatever. It didn't ruin the show for me. Still really enjoyed the show, but I definitely at the end of the episode was like, what did we just do? So that's that's how I feel. But I also like I see the appeal of it. Like I think it's fun to. I mean, you haven't seen it, have you, Gage?
No, I have not seen it. I haven't
I want you to tell me right now how it ends.
like
Yeah.
post end game. I have not seen anything, and
Wow.
that's not like a hard stance that I've taken where it's like I'm boycotting Marvel or something. Those are just movies that I always watched with friends, and I haven't watched a lot of movies with friends since then. So,
That's fair.
and when I have, it's like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter or Vampire Slayer or like that like Napoleon Dynamite. Like we watch the dumb, like just have fun movies most of the time. So
Yeah.
Now I want you to tell me how this show ends.
you want me to tell you?
I want you to tell me.
So I'm also unfamiliar with the comics, so this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Uh, Based purely on nothing, I'm gonna say that what happens at the end of She-Hulk is that she and Daredevil start dating, and Daredevil's got his old armor back, the red and yellow stuff, like a boss, the gold suit, and they defeat Galactus.
Oh man, I
Spot
love
on.
it. There, you nailed it.
Uh,
That's incredible. How did you do
yeah.
that? It's amazing. Holy
I
crap.
But yeah, no, I did. I enjoyed it. Not a huge fan of the ending, but I still liked it.
Fair. Fair. It was very meta and very they took a chance with that.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And what was the other choice?
Yeah. So the other one, it's a Canadian sitcom called Corner Gas, and I've probably mentioned it on the show before. It's from like it may have started in 2004, so kind of older, and it's just this tiny little town in Saskatchewan, uh, and like specifically a gas station there, and the antics that they get up to. I learned about it when I was on an internship in Africa. There were a couple of
Oh,
the people that were there like really liked it, and there was a Canadian on the team, and she really liked it. Learned about it there, and then didn't watch it for a while. But Angela and I, we watch a lot of sitcoms, and so we've been probably the past 3-4 months we've started it up and been doing that.
and it lands, huh? It works. It's like, yeah, it's pretty good.
It so we watch like so we've got like 3-4 shows that we're working through right now, and I would say it's the one that she's least often like, oh, let's watch Corner Gas. But like the competition is like Parks and Rec, for instance. So it's hard
Sweet.
competition. Yeah.
Yeah,
how would you
that's
compare it
awesome.
to like Letterkenny?
It's a
I
great
would
question.
assume so. I've not seen Letterkenny. I've only heard rumors
Or
and then
Shorzy?
seen like the trailer. But I would assume far less like aggressive
Hmm.
or like crass and much more like well I don't know I don't know enough about Letterkenny to know how much I would classify it as like slice of life, but Corner Gas is very like slice of life, I'd say.
Okay. Slice of life people are different. They're just like, man, that supermarket arc was great. Uh,
Yeah, that Bed Bath and Beyond series was just, oh man, that was amazing. That was so good. No, I think that's a fair question because I was wondering the same thing. Drake loves Letterkenny. That's a very Canadian show. They got the full Canadian accents. There's hockey. There's whiskey drinking. There's snow, and yeah, I was curious about that too. That I like Letterkenny a lot. I think that's a pretty funny show. I have one last one, and I think if you started listening to this podcast from the beginning and you heard me mention it, I didn't say the name, but I described everything about it. 4 episodes in, I watched it. It's a German show. I watched it in subtitles, but I didn't actually say the name. I feel like I should throw it out there for anybody that's like, I hope he says it by now.
Mm-hmm.
The show is called Dark. And it is to me one of the most incredible. It gets kind of squirrely, and I don't necessarily love seasons 2 and 3. But I love it. Is probably one of the highest rated in my bracket in my brain shows that exist for a one season of a show, and it's
okay.
called Dark. I cannot preach that show enough. It is so wild what it does with timey-wimey stuff. So if you like Christopher Nolan-esque movies, you'll probably dig this. It is just so well done, and they do this thing with the characters where they cast like a young kid, and then they're like, you see the adult version, and it seriously looks like the kid version is gonna grow up to be the adult version.
Hmm.
Yet it can't be because they're filming at the same time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It is phenomenal. Gosh, it's so good, so good. So I can't just you don't have to watch season 2 and 3 unless you like want to keep going. But man, get to episode 4 of Dark. It was really highly rated on Netflix, and they so much so that they allowed the creators of Dark to create a new show called I think it was like 1849. And that show didn't take off, but like Dark was the original creators of that show.
Okay.
So, throwing it out there for anybody who's screaming at their phone. Yeah.
um, okay. I'll have to check that out. This is different, but like I've watched a lot of anime in my time, and so subtitles are not a problem. Uh,
I've
Yeah.
watched Life is Beautiful, so subtitles not a problem.
There you go.
we
High class around here.
we did an episode on the Miracle of the Andes, which they made a Netflix movie about that was all in Spanish or Portuguese. It was Spanish, and so subtitles not an issue. I never watched it, but wouldn't have been an issue anyways.
Because of the subtitles, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually why I
Yeah.
didn't watch it.
Actually, the subtitles threw me off. I didn't want to watch that.
Well, my sister and I wanted a movie that we could just passively watch, and you can't passively watch something you don't understand. So I've got just a couple other like I've got a show and then like honorable mention two movies real quick. Now the show by definition probably isn't underrated, but it's only available on one streaming source, and it's one that not a lot of people I know have, and so that's why I'm putting it in this category. And it is From,
Oh, yeah, I've heard
and
of it.
I've watched the first two seasons. Season three is streaming now. They're weekly episodes, and it's made by the people who made Lost. So if you're familiar with Lost at all, you kind of have an idea of the type of story you're getting into. But essentially, it's all these people who end up all over the country. Like they're not from the same place. They're not. It's not like a place that is permanently fixed in its geographic location. But these people all across the country will just go missing while they're on a trip, and they'll end up in this little town that has food fully stocked, and it doesn't seem to run out. It's got like houses. It's got a church. It's got a diner. It's got some other things that are in the town, but you can't escape. And it doesn't matter how far. Like if you try to drive back out, your car will just magically end up pulling back into the town. And at night, there are these monsters that come out, and if you're not in one of the safely designated places, they attack you and kill you in very very not fun ways. Uh, so it's a lot of it's a lot of dark elements going into the story, a lot of mystery to it, and 3 seasons in, a lot of people still don't really know what is going on, and so it's really good. I hope they're able to, because they have a lot of child actors in it. I hope they're able to finish it before they're 20, 25, and they're not
Looking at you, Stranger Things.
they're not playing seniors in high school looking like they're 40. But it is what it is. It's just a good show. I haven't seen any of season 3 yet, so I can't speak to its quality. But seasons 1 and 2 were great, and it's really good. There's some violence, like there's a good deal of violence and scary themes in it. So if that's something that you don't really want to do, then I wouldn't do it. But if you're okay with that stuff, it's really high key recommend. Really high key recommend. I know DJ hasn't. Have you seen any of it or heard much about it?
No, but my co-host on Joy Schtick Show, Drake and Scott, have watched it. I don't know
Okay.
if they watched both seasons, but they were like talking about it and on the show, and yeah, just that premise alone, that sounds crazy.
Mm.
I love it, and you take a concept or like the people who made Lost, where it's like, what is
Mm.
really going on, and every question kind of or every answer gives you a new question and it unlocks a new thing. You're like, what the heck? But I see it pop up all the time on Amazon Prime as like an
Mhm.
AMC Plus add-on. And I really do want to watch it. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do the AMC Plus add-on, but it sounds so good. That premise alone, it just sounds wild. Oh,
So
it's awesome.
as of right now, I don't know how long it's been this way, but as of right now, seasons 1 and 2 are just on Prime. Like they're available on Prime with no add-ons. So
Oh, okay.
just throwing
You
that
don't have
out
to
there.
get the AMC Plus subscription?
No, they're
Oh,
base.
wow, okay.
Seasons 1 and 2 are on base Prime. Season 3, you have to
I know
have
what I'm
the
doing tonight.
the add-ons though for season 3, which is why I haven't watched it yet. So I'm waiting for it to be out.
Okay.
I'm gonna get a free trial and just finish it and then cancel.
There you go.
um, but yeah, so that's my show. And I have 2 movies, and I talked about both of them in an episode that's coming out after this one. But we this past year I watched a movie called Savage Land, and it's a found footage horror film, kind of, but not found footage in that it's from the perspective of a camera that someone finds, like you're, just literally watching it from a camera. It's a documentary style of a small border town between like in Texas, just real close to the Mexican border, where this whole town of like 60, 70 people just like got brutalized, and no survivors except for one guy who they're claiming did it all, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to think he did it. And so they find the roll of camera, like roll of film from his like normal camera, and they go through the pictures detailing what he took on that night, and you find out that it was like zombies that attacked the town.
Whoa.
um, and so it's so good, and it like really feels like you're watching a documentary the whole time. Really, really good, and it's creepy all throughout without being in your face. Like it's more of just an underlying dread instead of being like just in your face jump scares the whole time, because the whole movie, like, you're not seeing anything actually happen. You're just seeing some pictures and hearing people talk about it, but it's just it keeps you suspense the entire time. Um, and then the other one is a straight to TV movie that was on TNT called Door to Door, and it's the true story of a man named Bill Porter, who was a salesman in Portland, Oregon, who had cerebral palsy, and he was a door to door salesman back in like the 70s, 60s, 70s. Did it for decades, and it's his true story of like his mom supporting him to be able to do it, him getting the job and becoming a very successful salesman, and then his career kind of coincides with the decline of door to door sales and the rise of phone and internet sales, and so it kind of touches on that a little bit as well. And there's a lot of big name actors and actresses in the show actually, so it's a good movie, really heartwarming. I cried multiple times throughout it, just not because it
Oh,
was necessarily overwhelmingly sad, but because it just tugged on the heartstrings just right.
yeah.
And
Door to door, huh?
I watched both of those for free on YouTube, so check them out.
There you go. Very cool. Man, great recommendations, I think, all around. And it's like now I have so many movies I got to add to the list. This ever-growing list. You can never watch all the movies out there that are amazing, but yeah, you guys really dropped some great ones in there and some great shows too.
Well, thank you, thank you. I'm excited to check out the movies you brought up too.
So there's a show that I was watching on Hulu. It was called Welcome to Flatch.
Yeah,
And
that was fun.
so did you watch it?
I've watched, yeah, probably at least like 5, 6 episodes, but it was a fun show. I laughed at it quite
Yeah.
a bit.
Yeah, I feel like it was fun. I think that I wasn't surprised that it didn't get a third season, but it was fun. Like it was okay. I think it was rated. It's probably rated just about perfectly,
Mm.
in my opinion. But I feel like it's just my chance to say, hey, I know an obscure thing. So,
Yeah, I liked
except
how I.
that,
Oh yeah, go.
sorry, there were just a ton of ads for it. So I don't know how obscure it was.
That's true, but I don't know a lot of people that actually gave it the time. And
Mhm.
I liked seeing Sean William Scott. We hadn't seen him in forever. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he was in all the American Pie movies and Dude, Where's My Car? But then he disappeared for all those years. And it was nice seeing him back in it.
Hmm.
I really thought the girl and her friend, that girl was pretty hilarious. Like
Yeah.
they just had, small town, but I don't know. Did they want to be gangsters or something? I couldn't remember. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they just like always looked pretty hilarious and were doing hilarious things in it. Like that show was a ton of fun for what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised if I rewatch it at some point, like just for the fun of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I find myself rewatching the same shows over and over. I think I've watched through the first two seasons of Ted Lasso a good 7 times.
Wow.
Season 3 I watched once, and I liked it. I did enjoy it. I wasn't a fan of how it ended necessarily, but there's going to be a season 4, so I'm excited.
Right. Yeah, I was less happy about it when I thought that was the final season.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's pretty different too if you think about like season one compared to season three. Like you learn more about Ted's trauma and like
Mm-hmm.
kind of everybody's trauma and stuff like that. So for me, it was less funny and it was less like lighthearted in some ways. It was
Mm-hmm.
definitely like a heavier show, but so I liked season one the most, then season two, then season three. Like as it went on, it progressively got less and less happy for me. But I
Mm-hmm.
think I am very happy though that they're getting a season four. They're bringing him back because there's still so much they can do with those characters. And
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to say bye to Roy Kent, or I wasn't ready to say bye to Keeley and
Mm-hmm.
obviously Ted. But like Beard, like come on, what we can't leave Beard, So yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that show has so much they can still do with it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy it's coming back.
Say, Jamie went from being despicable to being the best character in the show. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited for anything they continue to do with him.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Jamie Tart, like the
Mm.
ultimate villain arc, right? Like there's all these movies now that are trying to turn the villains into sympathetic characters, and also like we've seen it with the Joker. Joker Folie à Deux number two fell super flat, and that makes sense. But like sometimes it's done right,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's unnecessary. Jamie Tart was one that was done right.
Mm-hmm.
His arc was awesome in that show.
It really was.
Fully a do, more like full do do. Got
Folie à
him.
Deuce.
Neither of us has seen it.
I
Oh yeah,
did.
not at all.
Yeah, I did, and I was very lucky. I got to go to like a fan screening, so it's like the people who are the most hyped for it, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
before general audiences get to see it and everything. And I'm like so pumped. I'm like, yes, Joker 2 are here. Watching. I'm like, when does this movie get good? And like, when does? I mean, there are some cool parts in it and all that, but yeah, it was that was a tough movie. In a year where Madam Web exists, they're like, dang, that was rough. So yeah. Hey, if you like it, I'm not trying to throw shade on it. There's a audience for everybody, but there was some stinkers this year.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I I need I really want to go watch movies more like in the theater again. I haven't done that much since COVID, but I'm excited to start doing that more.
Yeah. I think
Um,
for me, especially with movies and stuff, like, and it seems like those could go away someday and all that stuff. It's um it's like this communal experience, it's
mhm,
like it's what makes Marvel movies great in a sense because you're going to get a big audience, but seeing something where everybody laughs at the same time or everybody gets shocked at the same time,
mhm,
it's just what makes these live experiences so awesome too. It's like going to a concert, like
mhm,
and hearing something live is so different than having the Spotify saved song or even the CD if you're old enough for that. But it's like I don't know. I like the communal aspects of movies, and
mhm,
when you were talking about going to see movies with your friends, it's like that's, you know, me, Drake, and Scott, before we started the Joystick Show, and we were just in high school together, we go see a movie, and the movie might be an hour and a half, but we would sit outside of the movie theater and talk for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, wasn't this ridiculous? Wasn't this dumb? Dude, how cool is this? All of that, you know, and I'm very fortunate we get to still do this in a podcast form,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something I love doing so much in the world. It's just like chatting with your friends, much like what you guys do, you know, every week with here with this podcast. It's like, you gotta have things like that where you can just shoot the shit with your friends and like be ridiculous, have a good time, point out what you loved about it. It's, you know, and when you get to do it on a bigger scale, that's awesome too. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I hope movies don't go away.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, I think that's a pretty good spot to go ahead and close. We made that last the whole hour almost. So,
Yeah.
uh,
We're like, we have 5 things we could talk about. Let's start. Yeah, we got through one. So sorry, everybody. Probably talked way too much on this one.
oh no, but yeah, actually, let's. It's almost 9 here, so
Let's
let's
wrap
go
this
ahead.
puppy up.
Yeah, wrap this
Yeah.
puppy up. Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. It's been a joy having you on and being able to talk about something DJ and I normally don't venture into. Um, and so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's really exciting to hear about the things that you've done, and very encouraging to hear those words from you just there. So yeah, thank you for joining.
Awesome. Yeah. As we say in Hawaii, mahalo to you guys. I appreciate the platform. Thanks for letting me tune in. And man, I'm not kidding. You gave all great recommendations. These are things I definitely want to go watch. And yeah, I appreciate being on the show and you know, kind of lending or getting the ear of your audience. So I appreciate that. And yeah, like I said, if you want to come check out my stuff, Joystick Show, Challenge Accepted, Sick Burn Pod. So I'm at all those different places.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll include any links below in the description that you think would be beneficial. I guess it's time. DJ, I think there is a couple of people we should thank outside of this chat.
Hey, listeners, thank you. We mean it. If you've made it this far, we really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you for listening and for indulging us. If all of you stopped listening, we would keep doing this. So I won't pretend that your support is what keeps us going, but you can pretend that your support is what keeps us going. We do appreciate you guys listening to us. And then Adam Ward and Jared Scrother, they made our intro and outro music, respectively. We really appreciate them. They're a couple old college friends of ours. And yeah, thank you guys for doing that. To the cats,
Yeah, so we pride ourselves not talking about the cats. We do have some new friends, fairly new friends. They've been around for a couple of weeks with us at this point. But in Orange Cat, always, if you have cat needs, whether that be accessories, whether that be like toys, stuff to help you feed and take care of your cats, or if you yourself just want to live like a cat, you can find all of your feline needs at Orange Cat always. Use the link in our description and our code everything but the cats to get 10% off of your full order if you want to do that. If not, I understand. But check them out. It's fun to have them along. I would have worn my shirt today, but it's laundry day. Uh,
as always, you can also go to everythingbutthecats.com/we sold out. And do still use the code there. Yeah, so that again, thanks everyone. If as always, if our thanks isn't enough, go thank yourselves.